Welcome back to the Ed Show. Thanks for watching tonight. The big political question tonight facing Congressman Anthony Weiner right now is, can he survive all of this? Here's more of what he said today.
My primary concern about the entire incident to begin with was my concern about some of these relationships that I had becoming public. And it seems that what I had done by denying the original action had only served to make things worse and only served to lead to people being asked longer, tougher questions. It is really true that the smarter, better thing to do would just be to tell the truth and let the chips fall where they may.
Well, he knows he made things worse by not coming clean from the start, but he seems pretty determined to stay in office.
But I'm not resigning, and I'm going to try very hard to go back to work a better person and a better man, and I'm going to try to be a better husband, too.
The public will render judgment. There's always elections. Let's bring in host of the Ring of Fire radio talk show, and that is Mike Papantonio. Nationally syndicated radio talk show host Bill Press is with us tonight, and roll call political reporter Shira Toeplitz here on the Ed Show. Great to have all of you with us tonight. I'm going to go around here and ask all three of you, should he resign? Mike Papantonio, should Anthony Weiner step aside and live politically for another day to get the story out of the media? What do you think?
No, I'm not ready to throw him under the bus. Look, this shouldn't be a political career ending, and more importantly, it shouldn't be something he resigns over. When Republican David Vitter, for example, was caught on the top of the D.C. Madams list, he didn't resign. Republicans stood behind him. When you had John Ensign, look at the John Ensign story. He was caught in the steamy sex tryst, and then he tried to cover it up with campaign money. Well, you know, he didn't resign. He was around for 4 years. John Boehner, people forget the story about Boehner. This is a guy who helped cover up the Mark Foley story, where Foley was basically soliciting sex with young male pages. So I think it's wrong for us to say, let's throw him under the bus. Look, we need courageous, progressives need courageous people with conviction. He's one of them. Okay. I say this is his time. You stand behind him.
Bill Press, your thoughts. Should he resign?
I'm going to stand with Mike. I'm going to stand with Al Sharpton. And look, first of all, I got to tell you, man, this really, really pisses me off. First of all, as a Democrat, I think we're better than they are, a lot better than they are. Mike mentioned David Vitter and John Ensign and everything. When a Democrat does this, it makes us all look bad, and it really makes me very, very angry. And also, as a progressive, I think Anthony Weiner was one of my heroes. He's one of the best fighters we had out there on the cable shows and on the floor of the House. And for him to let us down like this is, I mean, just... It's ugly. It really is ugly. But at the same time, Ed, you know what? Look, Bill Clinton didn't resign. He did worse. He broke the law. I'm glad he didn't resign. I'd rather have somebody who's going to fight for the things we believe in and has a zipper problem than somebody who's going to be in the pockets of the oil companies and the insurance companies and doesn't have a zipper problem.
Shira Toeplitz, what do you think? Should he resign?
You know, I'm going to say not yet as well, Ed. I think politicians have committed far greater sins in office, and they've stuck it out at least through the end of the term. I think it was notable that Representative Weiner didn't say whether or not he'd run for another term at the press conference today. I think voters will get a chance to decide in about 16 months whether or not he deserves it.
All right. It's 3-1 here. I think, I honestly believe this. This isn't the end of his political career. This is a bump in the road that I think he's got to deal with to get his credibility back with the people. And Bill, you know, no question about it, that this is going to be a story that is going to haunt the Democrats for some time. Get it off the front page, get it out of the way, and move on and come back a different politician later on, somebody that's going to tell the truth. What's wrong with that?
Ed, his resigning is not going to get rid of the story, but you know, you touched on something there. His goal is to be the next mayor, of New York. He ran before, he almost made it, he stepped down, he was waiting for his time. That's what he was going to next. That is destroyed now. His goose is cooked, Ed. For somebody as ambitious as Anthony Weiner is, he has the punishment that he deserves.
Shira, he lied for a week. He did a media tour. What about that? How damaging is that going to be?
Well, I know a lot of reporters are going to think twice now when they hear answers from Congressman Weiner, who, by the way, was known for being very honest and frank with us on Capitol Hill. He's always been just very honest and frank, like I said. So it's surprising to see him flat out lie and then come out and totally admit it. We saw a totally different side of Anthony Weiner than we've ever seen before.
So, Mike Papantonio, where are all the Democrats tonight? We tried to book a few of them on this program. They're not going to touch this with a 10-foot pole.
Well,
I mean, they're going to let you talk about saying throwing him under the bus. Where are his colleagues? They're not going to bat for him.
Well, it's typical of the Democrats. Let me just tell you something. You could have gotten Congressman Weiner to show up for another Democrat, but it doesn't surprise me that the Democrats, they typically show this kind of lack of courage. They cave in. They're afraid of every damn thing, and so they won't come out and say, listen, let's talk about what a lie is. A lie is when you look at a camera and you tell the U.S. public that there's weapons of mass destruction and it ends up in the death of Americans. That's a lie. This is a bump in the road, and if Democrats would do what they're supposed to do and show some courage like this congressman does, they would be out here for him. Unfortunately, it's a problem the Democrats have. Weiner would be out here for them, I can promise you that.
And what about that, Bill Press?
Well, I just want to, I want to say that same thing. You've been talking about the lie. The lie really bothers me, and as Al Sharpton said earlier, I think the cover-up and the lies are far worse than what this guy did, which, by the way, with this new technology today, is an activity that millions of American men and women engage in on Skype or on iPhones every day. But, Ed, the lies. John Boehner lies every day about Barack Obama not creating any jobs. Paul Ryan lies about what he's going to do for Medicare. These guys lie all the time. They're the lies that bother me, not the lie which you understand of trying to save his ass, if you will.
Shira, what about this ethics investigation? How big a problem is this? And is this a way that the Democrats are saying, you know, maybe you should step aside and we should, as Nancy Pelosi said, drain the swamp? Is this part of draining the swamp, this ethics investigation?
Look, I do think it's notable that Chris Lee, the other congressman from New York who resigned after what some consider was a greater scandal, he was out of the House within the hour. John Boehner said, pack your bags, we'll see you later, okay?
Why doesn't Pelosi do that?
I think that's a really good question. I think maybe because Anthony Weiner didn't want to resign.
I want to add something there, because there's a long history with Chris Lee. He knew there was all kinds of other stuff coming out.
Well, Bill, there seems to be a long history with Anthony Weiner, too. I mean, he says there's about 6 women over 3 years. I mean, this guy was looking for excitement and love in all the wrong places. What's wrong with just focusing on the taxpayers and serving the people? I mean, serving the people is more than just jumping on the cables and being an advocate for people. I mean, does this guy have a problem?
Ed, I can't understand, and I'm not going to defend Anthony Weiner's sex life.
Okay, so with that, why doesn't Nancy Pelosi come out and say, you know what, you need to sit on the sideline and come back in 2012? This puts them in a tight spot.
I think the fact she called for a congressional investigation and ethics investigation day before anybody demanded it was the smart thing to do.
Shira, what do you think about the ethics investigation?
I think it was smart politically, but I think she absolutely had to do it. Otherwise, it looks like she's covering up for a Democratic colleague. When she was Speaker of the House, she called for ethics investigations, and she absolutely had to do it. And they want a rigorous ethics investigation. They want him to come out clean or don't come back.
What about that, Mike?
Well, you know what? It is a smart move, but what we miss about this whole thing is Weiner is more than just a congressman. Weiner frames issues, Ed. Weiner says those things that other politicians are afraid to say.
Amen.
He's like a Bernie Sanders.
But does that make him more insulated than anybody else who does this kind of behavior?
No, Ed, I'm not saying he's insulated. I'm saying he's worth fighting for, because he's the guy that'll go out on front line and say what every other Democrat might be thinking, but doesn't have the damn courage to say. And right now, that's what Democrats need, is people with courage. Nancy Pelosi did the right thing, Ed. She did the right thing. But don't push this thing too much. Let's remember who we're talking about this. Yes, he may have some gremlins going around there that he needs to deal with. But, you know, where it comes to taking care of the American public, where it comes to taking people who are out of work, taking care of them, taking care of people who need help in this country, Anthony Weiner is the guy who's always there for them. And we got to remember that as we go forward on this discussion.
Taking care of the American people is lying, Shira? What do you think about that?
You know what, I think he's been a congressman, but, you know, he's a congressman from New York. I think his greater ambitions were always to run for New York mayor. I think that's where his focus has been for many, many years.
Mike Papantonio, Bill Press, Shira Toeplitz, great to have you with us tonight. Thank you so much.
All right, you got it.
Walter Williams has so much experience behind Rush Limbaugh's microphone.